Capital problema.
And of course there's the two different types.
Yeah, I've known that for years.
All right, work this one out then. I took the car in to have its MOT done the other week. And on the way, I thought I'd stop and get a newspaper to read while I was waiting. Now, I came out of the shop and I saw my door mirror and it was cracked.
Wasn't it broken before?
Oh, no. I saw this bloke on a bicycle disappearing off into the distance. I mean, it could have been him, or it could have been, a pram or somebody carrying something.
That's 7 years bad luck.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to start with an MOT failure. But guess what? It passed. I mean, I thought the examiner must need his eyes testing. But you know what? He mentioned it to me and put it on the checklist, said I should do something about it. Now, I'm not going to argue, so I just agreed. But that's not right, is it? I mean, it was cracked. Should have failed.
Could you still use it to see behind you?
Oh, you could still see it, yeah, but it was cracked.
Well, the fella's right. It should pass. It should only fail if it's so damaged or deteriorated that the view to the rear is seriously impaired.
That's the criterion, is it? If the view's impaired?
Yeah, well, it's all to do with the driver's view of the road. An MOT tester checks a mirror for its condition and usability. Does it provide a view to the rear? But also, whether the driver can see clearly through it from his seat, or can it be adjusted so that he can see? Is it secure, not wobbly or hanging off? Is it even there?
Obviously, it's going to fail if it's not there.
Well, not exactly. That would all depend on which mirror you're talking about and on what type of vehicle.
What do you mean?
Oh, please, love, don't keep us in suspense. I thought we might all have some coffee at some point.
Look, there are 3 positions for obligatory mirrors. I'll show you. You've got your exterior offside mirror, you've got an exterior near side mirror and an interior rear view mirror, like so. Now, different vehicles have different requirements involving one or more of these. So it all depends on what vehicle and how old it is.
And I bet he knows them all.
I do, actually. Any passenger vehicle with up to 7 passenger seats first used before the 1st of August 1978 must have one of these mirrors.
What? Just the one?
At least one that meets all the requirements.
Right.
Now, any passenger vehicle with up to 7 passenger seats first used on or after the 1st of August 1978 must have at least 2 of these mirrors, one of which being the offside mirror.
So the near side mirror or the interior rear view could be missing as long as it's not both of them?
Correct. Any passenger vehicle with more than 7 passenger seats of any age is the same. Must have at least 2 mirrors, one of which being the offside.
But what car has more than 7 passenger seats? I know. Minibuses.
No, it's not quite that simple.
I didn't think it would be.
Now, a minibus has between 8 and 16 passenger seats. Any minibus first used on or after the 1st of August 1983 must have both exterior mirrors fitted.
Right. Hang on, where does a van come into this?
Any goods vehicle must have 2 mirrors, one of which being the offside mirror.
But wait a minute, an interior mirror is not going to be much use in a van without a rear window.
That's right. And if it was one of the only 2 mirrors, it would fail because it's not offering a view to the rear of the vehicle.
But most cars come with 3 mirrors. I mean, how does a tester decide which one to test?
Well, that's a decision for the tester. First, he has to check the offside mirror for the driver's view, and then look to see that one of the other 2 mirrors is satisfactory.
Right, so if it had been my near side mirror, well, it could have been missing.
That's right, as long as the other 2 mirrors were satisfactory. Mind you, he has to check both the exterior mirrors as part of the bodywork. So it could fail if there was any damage leaving a sharp edge which could be considered dangerous.
All right, but what about those extra mirrors that people fit, like driving instructors?
Not part of the test.
Aren't you off on holiday soon, Kate?
Oh, yes, I can't wait. We've got 2 weeks.
Yeah, but the MOT doesn't just cover the driver's view of the rear, does it? I mean, that wouldn't be very safe, would it, if you couldn't see where you were going? There has to be some potential for failure within the MOT of the windscreen and the wipers.
Absolutely. Take washers, for instance. First of all, the tester has to operate the washers and see how they work.
Actually, I heard that you can fail the MOT if the washer bottle's empty when they test it.
That's right, love. At the time the car's tested, there has to be enough liquid in the reservoir so that when it's sprayed onto the windscreen, the wipers can clear it effectively. That's the criteria by which it's judged. So, if there's no liquid in the reservoir, it can't clear the windscreen, system not working effectively.
But surely they can just fill it up and carry on. I mean, it's no big deal, is it?
But that's not the point. They can't do it during the test because it would be classed as carrying out a repair. And testers are not allowed to carry out repairs during testing. You know, it'd have to fail and be put right later. I mean, if you think of it, even something as simple as filling up a reservoir is classed as rectifying a fault.
And I suppose that they have rules they have to stick to.
Yeah, I mean, every MOT station tries to do a good job and follow all of those rules.
I suppose some of us don't always appreciate that.
Now, take the wipers. As he wets the windscreen with his washers, the tester operates the wipers and he looks at the area of the windscreen that the wipers sweep. He sees how effective they are and then he inspects the blades. And the controls used to operate them, they must be there, they must be accessible to the driver. And once they've been switched on, they must continue to work automatically.
And if they don't park on their own?
Well, a lot of older vehicles weren't designed to park on their own, so that's okay. But if they were originally designed to park automatically and they don't park properly, stopping in a position that impedes the driver's view, that's a reason to fail.
Okay, but they have to look at the relationship of the wipers with the windscreen, surely.
What they have to check is that the wiper blade fitted is large enough to give the driver a good view through the windscreen. I mean, the wiper designed for an old Mini wouldn't do a good enough job on a large van with a huge windscreen.
Okay, that's an extreme case. But
Yeah.
does the wiper blade have to be the exact length of the original?
No, not necessarily. It just has to do a good enough job so the driver can see clearly both to the left and the right of the vehicle through the windscreen.
So it could be a bit shorter if you couldn't get hold of an original blade?
Maybe, but maybe not. They'd have to assess each case individually.
What about when it's the wiper blade itself that goes?
Yeah, well, of course, if the blade is loose, you know, or missing.
Yeah, well, I can see that could be a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, if the thing's flapping around and it's rain sweat and then it flies off.
Come on, don't laugh. It wouldn't be that funny if it really happened.
Yeah, but eventually the blade starts to go, doesn't it? You know, sometimes the rubber splits. Or...
That's true. If the condition of the blade is such that it's not clearing the windscreen properly and the driver can't see out clearly, it fails. But a blade could have some rubber missing or be split. But as long as it's clearing the windscreen, it's okay for now.
So, do all vehicles have to have washers and wipers?
Absolute. Well, the only exception is where you have a windscreen that opens or another means of providing the driver with an adequate view.
Now, what do you mean, another means of providing the driver with an adequate view?
It's the wording of the instruction. But say you had a vintage car that never had a windscreen.
Okay, now I get it.
You keep talking about the driver's view, Nick, but how exactly do you define that?
Well, what they look at is something called the swept area, which is pretty much as the name suggests. It's the area of the windscreen that's swept by the wipers. And the most important part of this is what they call Zone A. It's directly in front of the driver. It's an area 290 millimetres wide, centred on the steering wheel and goes from the top to the bottom of the swept area.
So what are they looking for within that area? What, obstructions?
Yes, very precise. Nothing must encroach more than 10 millimetres into the Zone A area, and nothing must encroach more than 40 millimetres into the rest of the swept area.
But that must include sun visors.
That would only fail if the driver's sun visor couldn't be stowed in an off-screen position.
But not the passengers?
No, that wouldn't fail.
What about taxis? They have for-hire signs that stick up.
Again, only fails if it seriously impedes the driver's view.
But what about things that might get in the way of the driver's view, like tax discs, things like that?
Ah, fluffy dice.
Oh, you can't fail someone for having bad taste, can you?
Unfortunately not,
Oh,
Chris.
yeah,
Mind
that would be
you,
a good idea. And what about
you
those
might have a word
nodding
with the powers
dogs?
that
Those
be,
huge
see
air
what-
fresheners.
Yeah, and those football shirt type things.
All these things are still testable, though. Anything easily removable that looks as though it might be obscuring the driver's view, well, the tester's going to give you the opportunity to remove it before he issues the VT30. You know, one of those sheets you get when the vehicle fails.
I've had a few of those.
Now, official stickers, things like parking or access permits, things that aren't so easily removable, well, they're fine as long as they don't seriously impair the driver's view of the road.
But what happens when the windscreen is designed to be small? Like a split windscreen with a pillar down the middle, like in some of the older cars.
Yeah, like in the original Morris Minor. Yeah. It's fine as long as it's part of the original design.
What about security vans with the reinforced window protection?
They're all right as well.
Oh, 4x4s with a spare wheel on the bonnet. I mean, that must be an obstruction.
Yeah, you might as well talk about the mascots that are mounted on the front of the bonnet.
That's right.
They don't fail, actually. Nothing mounted forward of the windscreen is considered in the test when looking at the driver's view of the road.
Oh, come on. What about the black edging round the windscreens?
That's not considered as part of the windscreen for the purpose of the test.
Come on. Opaque film.
Yeah, they are, and they're subject to all the checks for obstruction and damage. Now, tinting films, that's a different story. They're not currently considered in the test.
What about...
Whoa, boys. Now, who would like some coffee?
Now, sit down, Jane. Relax, enjoy yourself. You've been rushing around all day. Let me do it. Oh, wait a minute. Windscreen damage. We haven't mentioned that.
No, that's something worth mentioning, though.
Well, it is, Chris, because any damage within the Zone A area must be contained to within an area of 10 millimetres, or in the rest of the swept area to within 40 millimetres. Or if there's a spread of minor damage across the driver's view, of course it fails.
Well, so damage is going to be things like cracks, scratches, chips, yeah?
Well, that's right, but little tiny scratches across the surface of the glass are fine. But if they concentrated to a point where it's difficult to see through, like where a faulty wiper's been scratching back and forth over time, and then, of course, it fails.
What about damage outside of the swept area, though?
Not a reason to fail.
I know you can have windscreens repaired. Well, what about that?
Well, a repaired windscreen must meet the same standards as the original one. But if it's a good repair, I mean virtually invisible or barely detectable, then it doesn't count as damage, even though it may exceed the dimensions of the swept area criteria.
But if it's a mess?
If it's a mess, then it obscures the driver's view.
I know it sounds a bit dramatic, like the Cannonball Run or something, but what about the possibility of the bonnet flying up while you're driving along and blocking your view?
Yeah, well, that's a real risk in the rush hour gridlock, isn't it?
I've always rather fancied Burt Reynolds.
Oh, yes, Silva, I know, a real man.
No, Kate, you're right. Bonnets have to be checked in an MOT for precisely that reason. They have to do it to all vehicles that has a bonnet which would obscure the driver's view through the windscreen when opened.
Well, so what's the test for that, then? What, driving along a dirt track around a few hairpin bends into a force 10 gale?
Yeah, very funny. No, all they have to do is check that the bonnet can be secured safely when it was closed and that the retaining devices are in good condition.
Retaining devices? There's all the technical terms, isn't there?
Well, there is more than one type. You know, you can have a latch, or some cars have a secondary latch, you know, where the bonnet's not quite closed and it catches. Well, if that's the only latch that's working, then it's not good enough. It would fail.
Now, I can see that. That would be dangerous.
You know, rally cars have locking pins. Some custom cars have safety clips. You know, they all have to be effective, secure, and in good condition.
Well, it sounds to me like all you have to make sure is that the bonnet will fasten securely. So if it was stuck or if it was jammed or something, well, you'd have to pass then, wouldn't you?
You wouldn't even get that far, mate. They'd refuse to test it. Well, think about it. They've got to be able to get under the bonnet to check all the other things that they have to test. I mean, think, what's under a bonnet? You've got your engine, the brakes, vehicle structure, emissions. Now, if you want to talk about emissions...
Whoa, enough. Now, Who would like a coffee?
Oh, yes, please.
So how comes you know so much about this then?
You had a good teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Was he right then?
Yeah, spot on with everything. I didn't know you liked Burt Reynolds.
What time did you book the taxi for?
What's he got that I haven't?